The courtroom fell into a silence so sharp it could cut through bone. Sunlight poured through the tall windows, casting long beams across the polished floor, and in that glowing path stood a man who should never have been there. His blue janitor uniform was wrinkled, his hands trembling as he held a stack of papers he barely understood, and yet he was the only one left standing between a frightened woman and a verdict that could destroy her life. His name was Jared Hollison, a single father who cleaned floors for a living. A man who never imagined that fate would shove him into the center of a millionaire's trial. And now, as the millionaire's corrupt lawyer bolted out the side door, and the judge demanded representation, every pair of eyes turned toward the janitor with the soft beard. Warm eyes, and a heart that always placed others before himself. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kind Soul Stories. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Jared had never asked for attention. He had spent the last 6 years quietly working nights and early mornings at Westbridge Courthouse, sweeping stairs and polishing railings while trying to raise his daughter, Marin, after his wife passed away. Life had been merciless to him, stripping away dreams one hardship at a time. But he never complained. He couldn't afford to. His entire world revolved around making sure Marin had a lunchbox filled with healthy food, a clean school uniform, and the kind of love that soothed the absence of a mother. On that particular morning, he was finishing up a routine cleanup in the hallway when the sound of frantic footsteps echoed behind him. The millionaire defendant, Gregory Vance, had been accused of orchestrating a fraud scheme, exploiting dozens of families. The courtroom was filled with tension, reporters, and guards. But Jared's attention wasn't on Vance. His focus was on Nar Elling, a former assistant who claimed she was set up to take the fall when she tried to expose the truth. She looked small in that big courtroom, terrified and alone, her public defender having stepped out briefly. Then, everything spiraled. Gregory Vance's high-priced lawyer, a tall man with slick-back hair and arrogance in every step, suddenly realized the evidence was shifting, and the prosecution had new witnesses ready. In a moment of sheer panic, he grabbed his briefcase, muttered something unintelligible, and bolted out the emergency exit. Gasps rippled across the room. The judge slammed her gavel, demanding the defendant produce adequate counsel immediately. Chaos erupted. Nara, seated only a few feet from where Jared had been mopping earlier, buried her face in her trembling hands. She didn't have the money to hire a new lawyer. Her public defender was still nowhere in sight. And as the judge threatened to delay the proceedings, which would give Gregory's team time to manipulate more evidence, the prosecution protested fiercely. Jared saw tears slipping down Nar's cheeks. Something inside him tightened. He had seen that same expression before. On the day he lost his wife, on nights when Marion cried for the mother she barely remembered, on mornings when he didn't know how he would manage one more day. Against every logical thought, he took a step forward. Then another. "Sir," the judge said sharply, when he appeared near the bench, still in his janitor uniform. "This is restricted space." I know," Jared whispered, feeling his voice trying to run away from him. "But she shouldn't be alone. Not like this." A murmur filled the room. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Are you suggesting you will represent her?" Jared swallowed hard. He wasn't a lawyer. He'd studied criminal justice years ago before life crushed every dream. He completed 3 semesters before dropping out to support his pregnant wife. He never returned. But somewhere inside him, the spark still existed, buried, almost forgotten, but real. "I'm not asking to be her lawyer," he said softly. "Just someone who stands beside her until the proper counsel arrives." But Nara lifted her head, eyes red, voice shaking. "No, please stay. You're the first person who has stood up for me since this began." The judge hesitated, cameras flashed, officers stiffened, an entire courtroom waited. Finally, she allowed it only temporarily until legal counsel returned. And so Jared Hollin, the janitor, with a gentle voice and a kind heart, stepped into a place he never believed he belonged. He stood beside N, one hand resting supportively on her shoulder. It wasn't much, but she sat taller, breathed easier, and wiped her tears. Then something remarkable happened. As the judge reviewed new documents, Gregory Vance smirked arrogantly, assuming the day was still his to manipulate. But Jared recognized something the moment he glanced at the dropped legal folder the fleeing lawyer had left behind. A timeline, a forged signature, a conversation transcript handwritten in a style Jared had seen in the courthouse complaint files months before. Handwriting belonging to one of Vance's own employees. A tremor ran through him. He asked permission to submit the paper as an observation, not legal argument, just a factual inconsistency. The judge allowed it. And in that moment, the courtroom shifted. The prosecutor's eyes widened. The judge leaned forward. The reporters started scribbling faster. They realized a critical piece of evidence had been overlooked, buried in piles of legal misdirection. Jared had noticed what trained lawyers had missed. Na looked at him as if she was seeing sunlight for the first time in months. What followed in the next hour felt unreal. The public defender finally rushed in, breathless and apologetic, but by then, Jared had already done the impossible. He had shifted the narrative, pointed out the deception, and helped uncover the truth. With the new evidence, the prosecution dismantled Vance's arguments. The judge ordered an adjournment to evaluate criminal charges against the millionaire for tampering. When the gavel fell, reporters weren't running after Gregory Vance, they were running after Jared. He didn't want interviews. He just wanted to finish his shift and pick up Marin from school. But he couldn't escape the emotional flood from the people he had helped. Na hugged him tightly, thanking him through tears. The judge even approached him quietly to say that courage like his was rare. By sunset, the courthouse steps glowed gold as Jared stepped outside, exhausted, but at peace. His daughter ran up to him with open arms. And when she asked what happened today, Jared simply said, "I stood up for someone who needed it, because that was all he ever wanted to be. Not a hero, not a savior, just a man trying to make the world a little kinder." If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kind Soul Stories. Your engagement helps us keep spreading hope. Special request. Before you go, comment below and tell us what part of the story moved you the most. And somewhere in the world, as evening settled in, a single dad janitor walked home, knowing that, for once, life had allowed him to give someone else exactly what he always wished for himself. A second chance delivered with kindness.